Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Fire Emblem Unit Feel, where we not only objectively but also subjectively put units in the wrong tier based on how fun they are to use. And of course, I'm here with the expert in Unit Feel. How are you doing, Professor Bopper?
Oh, I'm doing great today. Ready to talk about so many great units. Look at them; they're so amazing, so beautiful. But yeah, I'm ready.
Alright, let's go. So the plan for today is to go through mostly the GBA Fire Emblems, and then depending on how much time we have, some Path of Radiance, maybe some Radiant Dawn, depends on how much we have to say. So yeah, I guess we just kind of get into it. If you're confused about what this all is, there's a whole playlist of these that you can find in the description with more elaborate explanations, but basically just how fun and how good it feels for units to be used, or how good it feels for the player. First up on the chopping block, we got Miledy. Coincidentally, I just recorded the episode where I recruited Miledy for the first time in Fire Emblem 6. It's been a while since I've used her, and she's not super hot in her joining chapter, but even her base is already spelled that she's like super powerful, and she only just gets more broken from there. I think Miledy's one of those units that makes combat in FE6 feel good again, if that makes sense, because especially around the time where she joins, a lot of units in FE6 just kind of don't feel that good in FE6. I don't know if that's just me. It's like they just kind of don't one-round KO and they miss a lot. It depends on like which unit you use and whether you have supports or anything. But Miledy's one of the units that just, it feels really good to have a unit that can just give an iron weapon or even a javelin and you one-round KO generic enemies. That's something that I don't need to have happen for every single character, but by the time you get to that point in FE6, it hasn't happened a whole lot for a very long time. So having that FE7, FE8 feel of just destruction is just really good feeling to me. But in general, I just really like using broken units, and Miledy just has insanely good HP, strength, speed, and defense compared to their game standards. So for me, personally, I think this is an easy good. The only bad thing about Miledy that I really don't like is that her aid is very low, so she can't pick up the most basic things. And I don't know about you, but whenever I am moving units to certain positions and then planning to like rescue drop them out, and I can't because Miledy can lift like pebbles, it's like the maximum weight that she can lift. It's like, you know what? You can kill every enemy in the whole world. You can destroy everything in one hit. You can tank like 5,000 enemies, but lifting my Gonzalez or whatever is too much to ask. Like, what? That's dumb. That takes me out of the game completely, and I actually have to take a break from FE6 for like a whole week when that happens to me. That's the only bad part of Miledy, but I think for me she would still be in good. What about you?
I mostly agree. I do think it's funny on the rescue dropping that the way the GBA formula is so silly, because I'm not sure on the exact numbers, but my guess is that Gonzalez could probably pick up Miledy
yeah,
and her
definitely.
wyvern, but she can't pick up him. Surprising on that kind of made it through in the games, but I think Miledy's unit feel is very determined by difficulty, I find. If you're playing on normal, she doesn't jump out in the same way because, well, for one, other characters are more capable at dealing with enemies, but also she doesn't get those hard mode bonuses that she for some reason gets in hard mode.
Yeah.
Because I remember watching one of my friends play through FE6 on normal mode, and I was like, Miledy's a game changer. You're going to love it. And it was just completely unimpressive to him as he was playing because on normal mode, she just statistically isn't as good, and everyone else is more competent. But for the good things that help her, I think the other stuff that helps her is that she joins at the same time you can just start buying killer lances, which is like,
oh yeah, true.
You know, that helps a lot. And then she joins, her first full map is Arcadia, which is like custom built for her. So she has like kind of the opposite benefit of someone like Cecilia, where she joins in a map that really lets her strengths come through instead of like nerfing her hardcore. So I think just great join time, like just the timing of it is really good for her. Yeah,
I agree. I think in general flyers have a leg up in unit feel just because the flexibility of being able to go everywhere feels so good. It adds a great deal of freedom to the way you can like use them and deploy them. That I think helps a lot. And I'm glad you brought up normal mode because I actually experienced the same thing in reverse recruitment, I think, where Miledy just Wasn't that statistically impressive. I do think she's still one of the better units than normal, but she definitely stands out a lot less, which I guess doesn't help that much. How would you like to go first on Zeiss?
So I know I've mentioned this somewhere before on Zeiss or Zeiss or whatever, but my most recent experience with him was, because Miledy was dead, was killing him so I could access the secret shop to sell things to be able to recruit Hugh. So I don't have too much recent experience using Zeiss. From what I remember of my first playthrough, though, he is... I don't know if he would be considered like an Est or something, but of like late join characters that have like a lowish base level and still have to promote, I think he's one of the more fun ones to use because he's in a really good class that gives him a lot of flexibility, so it's very easy to like get him to do things to get experience. And then even in situations where he can't do a ton of stuff for like combat, you still have like all that flexibility of flying over stuff or moving people around. And I think there's this like kind of nice convergence of he has like a good kit of stuff that he can do while also giving you that I'm going to train and feed this guy while it also not being like a nightmare. Because you do have the tools at that point to make, hit rates not terrible. And so I don't know. I think he's a very fun Est light to use. I don't know how to properly express that, but yeah, Zeiss, pretty fun.
I wanna like S-Light as a term, but then I remembered that I hate the term mini-Jagan, so I'm not sure if I can actually go along with it consistently. Something about that you said that I want to add on to it real quick. You say you have the tools to make Zeiss work as accuracy work. Specifically, the thing that annoys me about Zeiss, I'm gonna change between those two pronunciations a lot probably. The thing about him when he joins, he has D-Lances, and most of your characters at that point are using those killer lances that you buy in a Miledy chapter, which are not only accurate, but also high might, low weight, and just, they have a chance to crit as well, so even if you're not actually one-rounding, you have a better shot, or like you can make up for a miss that way. Zeiss, A, doesn't double, and then B, cannot use killer lances, which is very annoying to train him. Because then you have to rely on steel for that might boost, which, completely sinks his attack speed and his hit rate. Or you can use iron, but then he's a lot weaker, which doesn't make training up as fun. I cannot talk about Zeiss without mentioning my FE6 reverse recruitment playthrough, which was a long time ago. And I remember, like, reverse recruitment, for those of you unaware, is like you take the vanilla game, but you reverse the join time of all characters. So the first characters join last. So for example, Roy and Corel were switched around, and then Alan and Lance were some of the last characters to join. They got interchanged with like Yoder or like Neimi, late joining characters like that. Dayan, that kind of units. And FE6, more than a lot of other Fire Emblem games, is very front-loaded when it gives you characters. Between like the first 2 chapters, you get like 10 units, or like the first 3 or 4, you get like 10 units. So you go through the game backwards pretty fast in terms of recruitable characters. So Zeiss joins you as early as chapter 2. I think he replaces one of the fighters, or Shanna or something. He joins at a pretty low level, but so much earlier than in Vanilla. And in Vanilla, he's already pretty low level, so he only levels down like maybe 5 levels or so, but he joins like 15 chapters earlier, not even counting guidance. So in theory, you would think he'd be a lot better, and his stats hold up. I mean, he loses the hardware bonuses because he's no longer an enemy, but still his bases are relatively good. But I have never, in my entire time of playing Fire Emblem, and I've used all kinds of units, including some very inaccurate ones, but I've never seen someone miss in so many crucial situations as Zeiss did. To the point where I like made compilations of just how much he missed, and that basically got the whole that ha 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 sound that I sometimes use in my streams for like donations and shit.
Yeah.
I use that for Zeiss all the time because that's just... He missed so much. There was one time where he really fucked up, where all he had to do was finish off a hero with a killing edge, using a killer lance of his own, I'm pretty sure, or like the Maltate or something, I don't remember. The guy was on low HP, and all he had to do was just hit the guy and it'd be over. But instead he missed and then got crit in return, and I was so fucking mad that it happened. It wasn't like an Iron Man or anything, but it was just, fuck dude, can you just hit once? So that's Zeiss. The thing is though, like back then, that was really annoying, but I appreciate the meme that it became, and it made the playthrough pretty memorable for me, so I can't even put him in bad over it. And I agree that the S-Light feels pretty good. It's going to be a while before I get to him in my current FE6 playthrough. I might bump this down later, but for now I'm happy to put him in good for those memories, even though they're negative ones. And
I will say, I did forget about the D-base lances. I think when I used them, I probably promoted him really quickly, so I never noticed it. But yeah, steel lances are kind of bad.
That's
Bad weapon feel.
That's fair. That's definitely fair. I think there's an argument to be made that even though Zeiss has a lot of room to level up, you might be better off promoting him as soon as you can just for the Killer Lance Axis and the promotion bonus. That you do lose a lot of that S-Light feel, so even though that might improve his performance a lot, it might put him in medium unit feel just because you no longer get that massive XP gain. Because I think at the point where he joins, you also... How do I put this? You kind of stop gaining a lot of XP from kills. You fight a lot of unpromoted enemies for the most part, but your units are going to be promoted or near promoted. And they're going to be in an awkward spot where you're getting like almost the same XP from killing as you get from weakening, which I think is when XP feel gets the worst, if you excuse the phrasing. It's like, why am I even playing these? Why am I even fighting these enemies anymore? That's generally the way that makes me feel. But you know what? If you gotta make your Zeiss good, that was actually consistently in reverse grouping. That was the playthrough I promoted. That was the chapter I promoted Zeiss at, and it finally became somewhat salvageable, somewhat coincidentally. That same chapter, you get Fa, the dragon chicken, the Manakee. This is aesthetically, at least, one of the most enjoyable characters to use because I don't know. I can't phrase it any other way. It's just cute little girl transforms into a giant chicken dragon and breathes fire on enemies. When she crits, she just sneezes them into oblivion and kills them in that way. That's hilarious. Like, even if that unit is bad, you want to use it once or twice. And then there's all sorts of little funny things she can do. Like some other Manakee, she cannot fly, unfortunately. But she does have insanely high resistance, especially in like the FE6 cast, which is not known for its high res count, especially on physical units. But she has like, well, base 20, base 30 or something. And the way with the way you can manipulate enemy status staves, you can draw them towards her, even though she's by far the worst target hit rate wise. And because of her low HP, you can also make like long range tomes go for her, even though they shouldn't. But you can make them do that anyway. And tricks like that I think are neat, and then just as a unit to train, they're fun. The one big drawback always with Manakees, and we might have discussed this with Mur at some point, is that Dragonstone uses are limited. And so there's always this feeling of, okay, I can use Fa now, but if I attack with her now, chances are I might not be able to attack with her later because she only has 30 uses and you can't hammer in it. So no matter what, it's kind of like she's running out of lifespan, because if that Dragonstone runs out, not only does she no longer have the ability to attack, but she can't even draw fire anymore because her stat bonuses will be gone too, which is just horrible. She becomes a sitting duck, or a sitting chicken in her case, which is, knowing that will happen eventually, the more often you use her is bad. And it really conflicts with her high growth and XP gain that she gets, because she's so underleveled with a class bonus, and every kill gets her like 60, 70, 80 XP maybe. So you want to raise her, but every time you raise her, you also reduce the durability of her weapon. It's super conflicted feel. Now with Mur, it's fine because she joins later, relatively speaking, with 50 uses, and Fa just joins with 30 uses earlier with less impressive performance. And that kind of takes away from it, and I think that's very sad. So I'm not sure exactly where I would place her, but those are the feelings that come into me with Fa. What about you?
I agree on like the weapon use stuff, because it feels kind of like the legendary weapons in a way where it's, okay, I really want to use this and it's very good, but also like I want the true ending, so I've got to space them out like a little bit. Except it's even worse because you're like, okay, then this character is going to be completely useless. My most recent experience with Fa, and I think the only time I used her full time, was Project Ember, so not really the best.
The big buff, though.
Place to judge, because it is a big buff, and I think they gave the Dragonstone the 50 uses that Mur gets.
And 1 true range, right?
Yeah. So I don't remember how strong Fa is in like vanilla. Because at this point, basically all I use her for, if I do play FE6, is the stick her at the bottom of the deployment order and have her absorb, siege tomes and stuff.
Yeah.
Because that's like a free use that doesn't eat Dragonstone, but that's also like weird AI manipulation. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel like cheating, but it doesn't feel like great. So I don't know. I feel like
it doesn't feel straight up,
No. It is disrespectful, and that's kind of funny because the enemies are stupid. But I don't know. Like, I like using her. I feel like everything about her is good, but then the Dragonstone just really kills it.
Yeah. I think I'm sensing a medium here overall. It's like a lot of good and then a lot of feels bad. So I think that's how you end up in medium here, which is... It feels criminal to put a unit that's that fun to use in medium, but these things eat away at you, man. This is just... Even
Yeah.
if you never run out of Dragonstone uses, it still feels bad that it's limited because you hold back over it. Holding back is never
Yeah.
fun.
It always feels bad when I have like if I have like 5 Mur uses left. Once I kill the final boss, I'm just like, man, I could have had 5 more uses, but I was too scared to do it.
Exactly. Just like that. Okay. Here's what I'm really curious about because I have never used this unit, so I'm hoping you have something with OJ.
I used OJ in my first playthrough.
There you go. Yes, let's go.
Normal mode, obviously, I guess asterisk because I'm a casual, but OJ was a ton of fun to use because he joins. I think kind of like Miledy, he joins at maybe the best time for him because it's post chapter 7.
Yeah.
So the really brutal early game is over, and unlike Wendy and Barth, who he joins alongside, if I'm not mistaken, he gets the Axbro Isle coming up. So he's like this gotta grow unit who has like a niche, which is high accuracy weapons and weapon triangle advantage on like the following, I guess ignoring 8X, like the following 4 or 5 maps. So training him up becomes like very easy. And as much as I love Deke, OJ has like that big growth potential. He's very fun, I find, to use him at that point in the game, at least on normal mode, where I'm not like just rushing down Swordmaster Rutger to make the game not like brutal early on, to make henning possible. So I think when you have that extra hero crest on normal mode, OJ's a lot of fun. Hard mode, not so sure, because I just want Rutger to promote.
That's fair. Thankfully, Feel surpasses difficulty levels.
Yes.
Every experience is legit. I actually looked up OJ's growth real quick. The thing with OJ that I've always found is he feels like just an unleveled character rather than a character with real growth potential, because his growths are like, I guess, kind of good for FE6 standards, but not so great that you can expect like great returns on your level ups from him. He has like 40% strength growth and 45% speed and then 20% defense or something. That makes me I think if you want to make me like level up a unit that's at unleveled, it's got to feel a little bit better than that. Other tangents about OJ that I want to get into. I've always liked the theory that you can train up on axe enemy units, but I think when I looked into him for, I think like a debate a long time ago, I think he doesn't double reliably. I think he might double like steel axe guys, obviously, but maybe not hand axe guys or iron axe guys, which means you still have to set him up like very elaborately for him, at which point a lot of advantages of the weapon triangle are lost, like the avoid doesn't really matter if you're just setting up kills for him. At that point, he becomes like a Lina to train almost, where, you got to get in there too. And then also the Western Isle is like really choke point heavy, and if he has to get in there to get a kill with one range, I find it a lot more difficult to set up, whereas, for example, Lina goes at 2 range, so it's a lot easier, and in that way you can also train up someone like Sue or even Dorothy easier. I don't like being locked to 1 range, basically. I don't hate the lack of 1-2 range in FE6 because, Sword's still pretty good overall. But I think when you're training up an unleveled character, only being able to use 1 range and then the 25 use the light brand, it doesn't really speak in your favor. I will say on the flip side for OJ though, first of all, getting the Armor Slayer feels really good. And speaking of the Armor Slayer, there's one guy in my comment section who I think is a really big OJ fan because his profile picture is an OJ. His name is like Armor Slayer, and he's always on the ball posting timestamps for my videos like 1 minute after they publish, which is insanely fast. And it was like a while ago someone posted like in a reply to him, dude, the video's been up for 1 minute, how are you this fast? And he's like, well, I got line-based speed and 40% growth, baby. And so even though I have no experience whatsoever using OJ, knowing that guy is out there helping me out makes it feel a little bit better, even though I've never touched the guy. And in addition, I guess this might also be a good point to emphasize, because I haven't said it yet, all these units that you're seeing here in the Just Feeder text tier, and everything above as well, it's submitted by my Patreons, and they're the ones who support me every month and also submit these units. So thank you a lot. I'm probably going to edit their stuff in on the side anyway, but just wanted to have said it out loud. With that said, OJ, for me, I can't put him in feels bad because of what I just said, and I've never really touched him, so I guess I don't know if this is in according with unit feel philosophy, but if I've never like used the unit and I have like no experience with them, do they go in medium because they're at a 0 level? They're not in the minus and not in the plus. Is that how it goes?
I mean, that's up to you.
Okay.
I'm not super big one way or the other. I guess last thought on OJ is like it is probably difficulty dependent with what
Yeah.
you just said on like the doubling and stuff. Because on normal mode,
Oh yeah.
my experience was probably like just slower enemies in general, but he gets the ball rolling much faster.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Definitely.
you could just dump him in medium.
Okay, let's dump him in medium then. Okay, I guess that means we move on to some Fire Emblem Blazing Blade, FE7, also known as. We have Pent over here. Funnily enough, I've actually been doing draft race practices with Pent, which is my most recent experience using him. Obviously, if I go off my other experiences like playing Hector hard mode, playing Iron Mans and stuff, you know where he goes then. But I want to get into draft racing real quick because it's an interesting experience. In draft racing, usually you are using flyers to get through chapters quickly. Like we found good strategies to get through the game as soon as possible, in like 2 hours, using like Florina and using like Heath and using Fiora, for example, and all of them, you know, pretty good. The main reason you want one of those flyers is for Victory or Death, the map with Stella, where flyers enable you to skip a big part of the map. But some units can't carry Hector around. Heath can do it, Florina can do it, Fiora cannot, so Fiora needs a little help, helping Hector and Fiora across the map quickly, trying to avoid reinforcement zones and combat in general that costs a bunch of time. That's where Pent can come in to use the warp staff to get him across. The only viable warp user in a fast-paced setting like that is Pent. Because he joins with AMAX tabs, you don't have to train him or anything, and his warp range is pretty good as well. And I've found Pent surprisingly frustrating because for some other really difficult maps, he's just not there. For example, the Crazed Beast chapter with all the forts and Pascal and all the enemy reinforcements. That's a really difficult map that you can lose a lot of time on, and Pent isn't there, and that felt bad. That's one of the first times I've ever felt like, yo, Pent is actually kind of cringe because he's not around there. I could have, instead of drafting him very early, I could have picked Isadora, or I could have picked, I don't know, a Phila Flyer or something. I don't know. That was the first time in my life where Pent actually felt bad. So if I went off my most recent experiences, I would actually put Pent almost in bad or medium unit feel, which I think is revolutionary and stupid. That said, I'm aware of my own biases and my own recency bias especially, so I'm sure that everyone else in the world, including you, probably feels better about that. And I think if I had to be fair and average out my experiences, I would probably still end up with putting Pent in good. But I just thought it'd be unique to share an experience where Pent actually felt bad to me. How are yours experiences with Pent?
Well, I mean, the first thing I want to say is that he tries to save you from Genesis, so I think he deserves credit for that. I think it's just,
Thanks,
I
bro.
think he's. You talk about good first impressions. Is there another instance in the series where a green unit is so dominant in the map that they're in that you're trying to fight against them so that you can actually get experience?
A race to experience. I can't think of any.
Yeah, I can't think of any other. So like that's good points in Pent's favor. I think like the obvious answer is you kind of map his tier list placement with his unit feel, which is like he shows up, he kills everything, and it's like good to go. But I'm not sure how standout that is in like most contexts, at least that I've played FE7 in, where some of the stuff that Pent does really well that other people are not, like the A staves, is like cool, but also high level staff use in FE7 is not as crazy as it is in some of the other games. I find if someone can use Physic, like, you know, Lucius can after promotion, then generally,
Lucius
or Barrier.
is one level to get there, but you'll eventually get Physic. Yeah, Physic is B.
Oh, wait, Physics B. Is Barrier C or D?
Yeah, Barrier C.
Barrier C. Okay, like, those are, like, all nice, I find. But in general, I find, like, just showing up, killing everything is not super unique in FE7, especially by the time Pent joins, because it's not like Marcus early game where you kind of need Marcus to help funnel out some enemies so that everyone else who's not one rounding can work their way up. But by the time you get Pent, I don't know, it feels a lot less unique. But I think having like this mid-game killer mage is kind of awesome, because it is something that like this powerful we don't see often. So I like him. Like, nothing about him feels bad. I just don't think he's as stand out as it might initially seem.
Yeah. I think that might be very team dependent. I've definitely been in situations where Pent was like standout upon joining, probably because some units that did a lot of work died in an Iron Man setting or something. But I do think he stands out in the desert at least. Like he's more mobile than like everyone, and then he's better at combat than your flyers. So maybe that's who he stand out. I don't know. Like I said, I think I'm gonna have to put him in good. I can't really put him anywhere else, but I can definitely see where you're going, where you're saying. Let me crop this a little better so it doesn't look ugly as sin. Okay. Next we have a Hector, and I think it's your turn to go first, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
So Hector has Murph-Foss syndrome a little bit for me early on in Hector hard mode, where his two weapons are a hand axe and a wolf beam.
Oh,
and it's like, I don't really want to use either of these because we don't get like infinite hand axes are still a while away, and then the wolf beal is like, yeah, effective weaponry, FE7, 2 times effectiveness, whatever. I find that doesn't affect the wolf beal because Hector's so strong that he still like one-shots, calves with it. I find most of the time, or at least comes very close. But then you got to use it on like archers and soldiers in that first chapter, or you're throwing these inaccurate hand axes around. So I don't know, like I always kind of get irritated at Hector in the first couple of maps before I can get like an iron axe on him. But beyond that, once you get that going, then ton of fun. Like I don't know how to describe it, but Hector has like really big this dude carried my first playthrough feel. Where Fire Emblem is a very tough game to get into. Any of the games. I know we can talk, FE7 is one of the easiest, sure, but like if it's like one of your first games and you're like, oh, I'm getting my ass beat, and Hector just kind of rolls in, whether it's Eliwood mode or you go back and play Hector mode, he just sort of steamrolls things with the way a lot of people play early on, like I did, like really good. But then it also hits this problem of, in my first playthrough, Hector capped out his level fairly early, and then having a character run around just not getting levels, it doesn't matter, but it feels bad.
That's what matters.
Yes.
I agree. I think for most first players, there are 3 units. Well, actually, it's probably 2, depending on how you play. For like maybe not every like super experienced players, there's like 3 units that end up carrying FE7 super hard if they're not familiar with the game. That's Oswin, Marcus, and Hector. I see those 3 all the time, and everyone's running FE7. Everyone else could be dead, especially if they're playing Iron Man, but those 3 are always around and carrying everything. Like, for example, even like more experienced players, like Hoshi did that FE7 but not attacking thing, and obviously like those 3 units again were like super standout because they could take the hits to survive not attacking on player phase. Whenever you play any kind of challenging thing in FE7, whether it's your first playthrough where you're just climbing the learning curve, or you're just doing some kind of challenge playthrough, those 3 always come in clutch somehow. I say Mark's a little less because some people think he steals XP and they're inclined to bench him for that. But Hector, Oswin, everyone loves them. There was a Ask Reddit thread sometimes, not a thread on the Fire Emblem subreddit, but like an Ask Reddit thread that's somehow related to Fire Emblem. I don't know how. And someone in the comments there was like, my Hector was super carrying. He like killed everything. He was so strong. And I remember someone linked it to me going like, hey, Mekkah, look, this guy thinks Hector's really good. You should tell him he's bad because he has like 5 move when he promotes late. I was like, no, dude, that guy feels good about using Hector. He's just telling his own experiences. Why would I go in there and like go all actually on him about his late promotion? Like, who cares? That feels good. You covered most of it. I'm going to cover one last aspect, and that's the fact that Hector's animations are hilarious. He like attacks someone with a wolf beal, and I think the funniest thing is when he swings his axe and then he misses sometimes. Like the whole ground starts shaking. He's hit the ground. It's like, it makes the misses feel so much more drastic. Really annoying too, especially when he's using like those inaccurate weapons that you talked about. But really funny nonetheless. It's very, very pleasing. I can't put Hector anywhere other than good. He's just that amazing.
He is good. And I do want to shout out, it's not his animation specifically, but the GBA hand axe animation is awesome because it's just a boomerang somehow.
Wait, a hand axe, when he throws one, does it come back or not? I forgot.
I'm pretty sure all the hand axes come back from what I remember. Someone correct me on that if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure all the hand axes are boomerangs.
I think you might be right. I'm trying to think. I know the fighter ones, when I throw it, comes back. I think the funniest one is actually when someone attacks them at one range and they throw the hand axe anyway, but it's like super short. So like there's just no sense of gravity or anything in there. There's no the laws of physics do not apply to hand axes ever.
Yeah, guys running around with 20 javelins in their back, and then the fighters just boomeranging hand axes.
I think Hector in general is just pretty defiant of the laws of physics in general. Like when he's like using his big ass silver axe or whatever, it looks like it's made of rubber or something. It makes no sense whatsoever. But it doesn't matter because it still hits really hard.
Yeah, it does. And then of course Hector Copter, we can never forget.
Oh right. That's his Armad's crit, right? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so stupid. Okay. Next feeler is Lucius. I think I was up first. The Lucius, I remember I saw him on the list. I was like, okay. Lucius feels good to use in Lin mode, I think, when you first get him, which is very important. The first impression you always talk about. I think he generally one-rounds the Lin mode enemies. I know it's not super impressive, but I mean he's at base level, so it's kind of cool. He doesn't kill the first shaman. The tutorial makes you fight with him, but everything else he pretty much kills. And then he vanishes for, I feel like, just the wrong amount of time. He technically joins one chapter after every Lin unit returns, like Lin, Kent, Sane, Will, Florina. But it's like at the end of a chapter rather than at the start like the others, so it feels more like 2 maps. And I think that period of time makes all the big difference to where even when I'm excited to use Lucius in my Lin mode playthrough, and he comes back, I no longer really feel like it. And I think it might coincide with Hector hard mode's low deployment slots. The chapter after he joins, there's that guide in where you get like 4 units that are not Hector or something, like maybe 5. And the chapter after is the pirate ship where you get like maybe 1 or 2 more. And after that, you're not super likely to field him, I feel like, when you're choosing between units because you have so many other options. And around that time, you get like quite a few other units as well you want to use, like all the Lin mode units. So I think it's just kind of late to the party in that sense, and that doesn't help. And then when you want to use him, it's also hard to justify a little bit because he's so fragile and every enemy has crit on him. So it feels bad in that way. So I actually haven't used Lucius in ages, even though I wanted to a couple times. It's just he ends up being overshadowed by a lot of alternatives that don't really make it easy to justify deploying him. Even though I know he's pretty good. Like on my first playthrough, I used him all the time. I thought it was really fun to use. But now I'm just like, it's just been so long since I've used him because it's so hard to justify using him. I almost want to put him in bad for that, even though it's not fair. But then again, life isn't fair. What do you think?
Yeah, Lucius runs into, I think, a lot of the issues that these kind of middling FE7 characters do, is that, especially if you're trying to play on Hector hard mode, you know, and you're trying to go like full recruitment or something, you want Carla, then you got to use Bartray, and then if you want to like get Geets, which I'm trying to do in my current like kind of casual run, I've got to bring Lynn and Elliewood to a lot of maps, and so like there's just, but then you got to bring Marcus or you got to bring Oswin because someone's got to pick up the slack for those scrubs. So I don't know, it's tough to find him the space. And then magic, a lot of times early mages I find they feel underwhelming because everybody else can like hit really hard with like axes and stuff. But then light magic is just kind of unexciting, and he does damage with it. It's not like he doesn't do anything, but it's like, I could get this exact same output from somebody that is Hector or Oswin, and then he joins right before Canas, and that also hurts him, I think, a lot, because, man, Canas is so fun, and he's like, whereas light magic just feels like boring, Canas is like out here summoning like black holes and ignoring enemy resistance and doing all kinds of crazy things that I think give him that kind of better flair that Lucius doesn't have. But I do like Lucius's design, so you know, that's some points.
It's funny you say that because I think Lucius is effectively the only light mage in the game for at least like most of the game, and Canas is the only dark magic user, so they both are about as unique, I think. I mean, Renault and Sarah, like, who uses them to attack with, right? So Lucius is like, he's also like the first attacking monk in the series, I think. So I agree with your feeling, but you know, these facts, man, I can't ignore.
I know they don't care about them.
Yeah, but I know it's not fair. It's not fair. Yeah. I think I did research on Lucius's damage output against the other mages, and I found they were roughly equal. I was like, for the waifu Canas, I made like a whole graph and everything. It's like right up your alley, actually, with like how their strength or the magic develops over time and like how they compare. They're like roughly equal basically, because Lucius has like the higher magic between all of them, but his tome might is the worst, so it kind of evens out in the end.
Yeah.
I think one more thing that you brought up that I want to react to real quick is I think part of what made Lucius feel so underwhelming in especially Hector hard mode is he's comparatively pretty good in Lin mode, but then he joins a bit underleveled in Hector hard mode, and as a result, I think he usually just doesn't double and doesn't run out a whole lot of stuff. So it just feels like he gets a lot worse, and a unit that goes from good to being worse, I think is one of the worst, like one of the most disappointing feelings. Yeah. It's like he had higher expectations. That always feels bad.
Yeah, and I also want to say, like, I know I mentioned weapon feel earlier. The names of the light magic tomes don't help either. I find, because like Urk, at the very least, he's throwing fireballs, thunderballs. Lucius is out here like lightning, shine, and that just can't compare to Flux and Luna and Nosferatu and all those other cool sounding,
definitely,
tomes.
Like, just Thunder is so cool. The animation is also like Thunder is so amazing. It's like literally a lightning storm just comes down on your opponent. Elfire, the first time I saw it, and Pent just fries someone in the desert. Like, it just completely sets the whole place on fire. And Lucius is just like, oh, I see it's a little dark in here. Let me just light that up a little bit for you. It's like it's like doing a magic trick with his hands whenever he's attacking. Yeah, that's all that.
It's not even like the Athos light magic where he's like literally summoning like heaven itself to come down. Like, I don't know, it's just kind of disappointing.
I agree. I'm trying to put off my tears becoming two lines, so I'm putting it in bad.
I get the struggle. So I hate to break it to everybody, but the next 5 characters are all going in bad.
They just might. I mean, I have one more slot in here. We could apply some biases in here. Who went first on Lucius? I'm trying to see. Like,
I did.
You did. Okay.
I did, or did you? I don't remember.
I don't know. Okay, I'll just go first on Neimi then. Okay. Neimi, the early archer. Honestly, in a lot of ways, a copy of Rebecca, even down to like the fire affinity and like the reliance on supports to become super funny strong with high attack power and everything. I don't remember for sure if I used Neimi in my first playthrough. I've definitely trained her at least once in Sacred Stones, and I remember being like an okay experience. I enjoyed that they gave her a horse on promotion rather than the sniper class. When I use a unit like Neimi, I do enjoy myself because there's always something funny about, little girl becomes really strong and like gets high attack, hit, avoid, crit, and everything with supports. Because I think if you're not supporting Neimi with at least like 2 other characters that give her a bunch of attack and crit and avoid, you're not enjoying yourself as much. I'm not gonna say you're doing it wrong, but you might be doing it wrong. I always feel a bit like it's a waste to make her that good though, because I can't make use of it as often as I could another funny character. I'm trying to think of like another character that can like be made almost invincible like that has one to range, but the names are kind of eluding me right now. But if I have a unit that's like that powerful, if I'm only killing 1 unit per turn with her, that just makes me feel like I used a bunch of time to train a unit that does 1 thing per turn. But I could have had so much more fun if they could do it every single turn. And I know that like aligns very closely with how our tier list placement is done. It's like, okay, Archer bad in GPA game, what else is new? But I really feel that way. I really feel that if I can't make a murder machine do work on enemy phase, that takes away a lot of the power fantasy part of it. It's like, if I can throw, I don't know, Odin Dark, Master of Darkness into a bunch of enemies and murder everything, that feels a lot better than I can kill this one enemy soldier with Neimi and then put everyone else around her to protect her, because otherwise these enemies are not going to die and are going to clog up my whole place. So that still feels kind of bad. The only good units, the only good moments are when she's killing something on player phase. And I know she has swords on promotion, but the rank is much lower and it doesn't work out as well. They have similar problems where you don't counter one to range. So her productivity is just lower, and that ends up producing less good feel. Less, I don't know, whatever that drug name is, whatever that...
dopamine?
There you go. That's the one I was looking for. Dopamine is. I need more dopamine from using Neimi, and I don't get enough dopamine from it. So for me, Neimi would probably be medium or bad. Not completely decided yet. What about you?
Yeah. So Neimi, at least for me, is something of like a folk hero on my channel.
What?
Because, well, there was this joke that I always said that Neimi was really good because she chips the wall in Chapter 4.
Oh yeah, great utility.
And Yeah, that's that's very unique utility. It's like the first turn she's there,
Oh, yeah,
and then
so
I decided in my Iron Man I was actually going to use her, which I'd never done before. And yeah, same problem as like all archers in GBA, where it's like they're healers that chip people, so it takes forever to get her to level 10. Then I just fed her the Orion's Bolt, and I think I promoted her in time for the Pablo chapter on Erica route, where you have to like work around the mountain to get back up. The one where like Innes and Garrick join.
Oh yeah, 10.
And
yeah.
I promoted her, and she like got swords, and I was like, oh yeah, she's got swords. And there's all these axe dudes here. I'm just gonna throw her out here with the iron sword. And the very first enemy that fought her was a killer axe dude who crit her with like 20 hit and killed her in one shot. And she never even got to use her sword. It was very sad.
She used it to not dodge.
Yeah. Yeah, good use of the weapon triangle, Neimi. I really appreciate it. So, yeah, kind of like good memories on using her, but it was bad all the way through, and it was sad in the end. Just so sad. So, I don't know. Not very good.
Okay. Not very good. Okay. It looks like we have found another excuse to put another unit in bad. We're balancing these tiers out. We're gonna make a perfect block here. Okay. I think you're up for Cormag.
No. Cormag, I did not know this until I think this was also the Iron Man I did a Sacred Stones, where I learned that Cormag has a battle quote with Dussel.
Oh yeah.
On chapter 10 or 11, whatever the one is on
10, yeah.
Oh no, this was a different playthrough because I didn't do Ephraim route. But like he has a battle quote with him where Dussel's like, Cormag, you don't want to do this, and Cormag's like, yeah, I do, and Dussel's like, you really don't want to do this, and then just gets one rounded by him.
See, one round actually? I could swear to have like roughly the same speed.
Well, I mean, I don't remember. He gets killed by Dussel in that situation because Dussel, I think, has a silver axe. So it's just bad. It's a bad look for Cormag. Cormag, I think, has all the stuff that generally makes like those mid-game Wyverns fun, which is Wyvern's a fun class because it's super busted. It is unique because there's usually only one. In the case of Cormag, he's the only one at base. I think his sort of uniqueness gets diluted by all your other flyers being able to promote into Wyvern Lords, which makes him feel a little less, I think, exciting, and also like underrated annoying recruitment. I think people talk about a lot of annoying recruitments in the series. I think he has one of the more annoying ones that people don't talk about a whole lot. I hate flying into him to try to get Tana to talk to him while his Wyvern squad also like comes in. I'm sure there's a strat to make it easier.
There is,
but
if you don't know it though, I can buy it.
Yeah. I don't know what the easy strat is. Every time I've done it, it's either Ross kills him because I just drop Pirate Ross in there to bait, or everyone kills Tana, but at least I get Cormag.
Yeah. I think for me, it's usually Tana at the edge of his range, but not quite there. And then the other Wyverns come in with him too, sure. And then Tana comes in, flies away. And what you can do is you can rescue drop Tana with someone else to get her out of range. Or you can go with Cormag. I think he might double his friends, and then you have a kill lance. You have like 2 chances to crit them, which is pretty good. And if you do, then the other Wyvern cannot kill Tana in one hit. So even if she's in range, she's probably fine. You could also rescue Tana with Cormag, but then it gets very dicey. But figuring stuff out is definitely not something a first-time player is often going to do. And then you can get in a situation where if you don't use Tana or you don't know to use her. I actually watched an Iron Man run by someone else lately, by Curasso. I'm not sure if he's the one who submitted Cormag, but if he is, that's really funny. Cormag was like flying right at Dussel and friends. So that conversation you talked about was like about to happen, and not in a good way. Either that or he was going to like kill one of the NPCs and like get rid of a Night Crest. All very bad news, and then you could also like kill other player units, obviously. So you don't want Cormag to attack you with this kill lance. It's very bad news. And I saw Dussel was not recruited yet, and he didn't bring Tana, so he had Cormag in his range, like behind a couple enemies maybe, but he was there, and he couldn't reach him with Dussel this turn, even if somehow his Ephraim reached Dussel, which he couldn't because Ephraim was also far away. And I was like, you know what, I see a way for you to do this. And he's just like looking at the screen, like, how do I do this? How do I do this? And I said, it depends on one of the stats or units, but I don't want to say which, because like I don't like being backseated personally, so I was like, okay, I can see a way. Just try to see if you figure it out. He ended up figuring out, thankfully, that he could rescue drop Dusel, the big fat Dusel, close to his team, then talk to him with Ephraim, and then Dusel would be in range of Cormag. So like, not a very common situation, but it was very fulfilling to watch someone figure that out, basically on their own. It was pretty cool. So shouts to Grasso for figuring that out and keeping his units alive for that chapter at least. That's my most recent experience with Cormag. Not even him as a player units. Like you said, I enjoy busted wyverns a lot. Actually, there's one more experience about Cormag that almost makes me drop him down a tier, and that was in my my death mode run of FE8, where every single turn there's a chance that Erica gets a heart failure and dies, and then you have to start over the chapter. Very fun. I can recommend it to everyone, definitely. And I was in the throne room of chapter 14. Pretty long chapter overall. I was trying to rush it. So also trying to get some treasure on the way. And like the more turns you take, the more bad it feels. And Cormag hadn't done a whole lot up to that point, but I felt like it was crucial enough to keep alive for sure. A lot of units I was just not restarting for, but Cormag I felt like was too important to let die. And also I thought it was important to train him up, even though it was 0% growth, but I wanted to like get lance rank on him. Yeah, I know you can sympathize with that. He needs to get like S rank lances for better crit and better hit. And just better weapon use in general, like use silver please, because his weapon rank is actually kind of bad. It's not Zeiss level bad, but it's still like C at base or something in chapter 13 Erica. It's pretty late. And he was in the throne room, and I don't think I remembered to pure water him. I was like, you know what, it's just a couple monks, it's fine. It's like, they're monks, he'll be fine. He got crit, and he actually died, 2 monks, and it was very, very humbling experience I had right there. That's that should never have happened. You don't want to die to monks if you want to look like a badass, like he does.
I think my Cormag died in the same map in my Iron Man, by like one of the mages on that map. It was very sad. One good thing I do want to say about Cormag though is that he is a part of FE8's fantastic villain cast, and he is in like that great archetype of turncoat villains. And those are always fun, I find.
Why?
In Cormag.
Because
I don't know. I like them a lot. I like the archetype. And generally, I find because Cormag does get some decent screen time before he ever like joins you, it does feel like he's already had like something of a story arc going in. So there's like this kind of nice investment, this drama. I don't know. It's kind of nice. I like that. I give him points for it.
I can definitely buy that actually. It makes the characters feel like less the character of the day, you know, where it's like, okay, they come in for one chapter, they join, and that's all they ever do. But instead, he gets to do more stuff. I do agree with that. I think you see him in like chapter 5, talk to like his brother and stuff. Yeah, actually, I can buy that. Yeah. Overall, I think I'm gonna have to go with medium here. He's like way too good to fit in bad. But these experiences, man, you can't die to monks and end up being good. That's not how it works. I'm sorry.
No, you can't die to Lucius. That's just embarrassing.
Okay. Yes, the crown glory of Amelia. I think you talked first on Cormag, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I guess we're going first with Amelia, the good in general. So I think Amelia is one of the memes that stuck on my channel the most because I featured like an entire video. I dedicated an entire video to explaining how she's not good, but if you're going to use her, then at least pick Paladin if you want her to be like as good as she could possibly be. Of course, the kind of player that likes to use Amelia the most is also generally the ones that will enjoy General the most, and so not a lot of people really care about such advice, but I thought it was a fun video to make at the time. I think I remember starting that video with like, okay guys, just a quick video, and I ended up talking for 20 minutes just about Amelia and her perks and like any kind of efficient playthrough or something. It was almost as much about Amelia as it just was about like general tiering philosophy with a more concrete example. And I'm glad that that video has survived the day. I think there's still like at least 100 people who watch that video every month somehow. I don't know how. It's not a very good quality video. It's like it's really funny because I talk in that video about how Amelia is not good, but in the meantime, in the background for background footage, I'm training her in the tower and in a ROM that has all growth edited to 100%, so she's just getting like busted level ups every time and just destroying everything. There's also a playthrough in FE8 Iron Man I did where my Franz and my Ford, because yes, I was forced to use Ford. I was bribed into it, and they were both turning out really terrible. But I was like, and then I started using Amelia because chat was memeing me into it, and she got strength like every level up to the point where she had capped strength by the time we got to the desert chapter. Like she got way better than all my other cavaliers at any right to be, and her averages are not that much better. They're like slightly higher at higher levels, but they're not that good. But it was just surprising to see Amelia being so strong. And I remember having to hold her back a lot because her strength was great, but her durability was not. So she was a very good candidate for suffering from success, which thankfully she did not. I was very proud of her for surviving, but I was like really scared to use. Like a glass cannon that kills everything that comes at them. It's not great for Iron Mans, not at all. Really fun to use if you're into that kind of stuff. If these units, like, I think we've talked a lot about like how fun Est or Est Light units are like fun to use. I think I put like Lena in good at one point for that reason. I think for Amelia, it just really depends on what you're looking for. I find in FE8 it's very easy to get lost in units that like want to turn into training projects, and if you have too many of them, all their growth curves slow down because you're splitting up the XP and you're spreading it too thin, and in the end you end up with like a level 1 Cavalier Amelia along with a level 6 Marissa and a level whatever, what else is like under leveled in that game. There's a lot of units like that, and it makes it feel less good. I think they feel best when you combine it with a bunch of good units, and then you can feed all the extra XP you have to that unit. So if you're using like Seth and Francis already promoted, and then I don't know, like a bunch of other pre-promotes, then you have a lot of room to train Amelia, and then it feels really good to just get her out of control quickly. If you have a bunch of training projects, then she's gonna slow down a lot, and it feels bad. So it's really dependent. For me, for all the experiences and all the arguments I've had about Amelia, I put her in good with everything I've been through, just because it's funny. But mileage will vary heavily, I'm sure. What about you?
Yeah, I think she definitely is better in Ephraim route, because her recruitment is like, okay, her recruitment is annoying because it's in that big long hallway that just gets maybe more cramped than any other hallway in the series. But then you can just train her up on like one of those archers that's like right next to the healer, just stuff her into the corner while everyone else does interesting stuff, and you can just get her to level 10 that way. And I think that's really funny that somehow doing that just makes her become better, even though she should probably lose stats for doing it that way. So I think that's kind of fun. But yeah, she does kind of fall victim a little bit to Sacred Stones. Like you said, there's a lot of growth projects in that game. I think basically everyone in that game that's not like Seth or Dusel, or I guess like Garrick, is a growth project. There really aren't that many like just uber killers at base in Sacred Stones. That Amelia usually is, I gotta drop someone else that I've been trying to like make good, and then I've got to hyper focus on her, which can be rewarding, but at the same time, like, I don't know. It doesn't. I think she stands out more for just how bad she is at base, and getting over that like level 10 stuff doesn't. Getting her to level 10 can be annoying if you don't do like the archer healer trick. And then compared to Ross, she just doesn't have, I think, the uniqueness, because like, okay, you can go Paladin or Great Knight. Everyone can do that. I guess you can go General like Gilliam, which is cool. But like Ross, who's like the other trainee, is like, okay, he can like walk on water and go crazy and have all these funny crits and not have like all the like. So I don't know. I think she's generally fine, but like not my favorite growth project in Sacred Stones.
That's fair.
I'd rather use Ewan or Ross, I think.
Yeah, Ewan is also more unique, I guess, because he can do like summoner things or become any kind of magical thing. You said something I would really went off. What was it? You said a lot of good things, but it was like one particular thing. Oh yeah, getting over level 10 hurdle. That's the other thing. You have to like hyper focus into using her a lot on like the map she joins or whenever she does, because you cannot just promote her at will. I could in my Iron Man because I was playing on an edited ROM and I needed a trainee seal to make it work. So I just had to promote her in map. It could be whatever. I just had her at a cav in the joining chapter. But normally you have to like end the map with the trainee at level 10. If you end the trainee with like 9.94 or something dumb like that, then you have to spend another entire map having an unpromoted Amelia, which is a super terrible feeling.
I've had that happen. It sucks.
I also want to say, like, I think FE8, you said a lot of growth projects. I think that's because the game is kind of assuming that you use a Tower of Volume to some extent to catch up on level units. I think that's the justification behind the entire existence of Marissa, for example. And that's probably why they felt it was fine to do this. And I remember on my first playthrough, I definitely did use the Tower of Volney because the game kind of recommends you do it. but I think it just kind of destroys the difficulty curve if you use it properly. So I try to avoid it now, and that makes something I feel a lot worse. But like I said, I'm still gonna put Amelia on good because I still see I see a free slot there. All right, I've been waiting for. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and the good thing is that Kyle's not gonna ruin the symmetry here.
I was about to bring it up because I think I distinctly remember you saying that Kyle goes in bad for you.
Yeah, well, Kyle, I think, deserves a little special shout out for being one of the main influencers behind Unit Feel as even an idea. Because I know a long time ago you had did the video on like why you hate Ford, and it made me start thinking about like, okay, so like characters, why are characters fun or not fun to use? And I was like, Kyle does not get nearly enough hate. he was the influence behind why characters just don't feel fun, because everything about him on paper is like, okay, this is perfectly good and serviceable, and I can slot this onto my team, and it has no effect. But also, like, holy shit, is this dude just boring to use? He just does everything that Seth does, everything Franz does, but way worse. And doesn't really have like any kind of growth arc. He'll never escape that unless you just hyper focus him for some reason. He'll always be Franz at home. He'll always be Seth at home. But because he's better than Ford, he's not as funny as Ford, because Ford at least gets points for being a little shittier, and therefore funnier. So I don't know. He died for me in my Iron Man. I did a poll to determine what characters I used. He came dead last the entire FE8 cast. Renak scored higher than him, and that's saying something because nobody's ever used Renak. No one's ever recruited Renak.
Wait, Renak's recruitable?
Apparently. I don't know. I tried to do it. I think he got recruited in my run by like, I think I recruited him with Lara Shell, and then she got berserked and died. It was very sad, and then he just died anyway. But
still more notable than anything Kyle can do.
Still more notable than anything Kyle did. In that same run, Kyle, for me, died in Chapter 8 is when he rejoins, correct?
Yeah.
That's when, like, the Ephraim squad joins. He died there, not because he couldn't do anything, but because I just didn't feel like moving him from his starting position. It's too much work and not worth it. So he just died, and I've never looked back.
Oh, I'm glad this one came up. I think even if you just look at Kyle, it's hard to get a good feel for him because he looks boring as fuck. He's just a generic
He's a green unit.
He's a green unit, and his hair is boring, and he looks kind of serious. He's basically just Kent, but green. Like, that's basically his entire portrait. And I agree with almost everything you said. I'm not quite sure if Ford or Kyle is actually technically better considered nowadays. I don't remember his weapon ranks at base. I know Ford can use the kill lance at base and like has a pretty good shot to get the killing edge after promotion, which I'm not sure if Kyle does. I think Kyle is like tankier than Ford and like slightly slower, but with more cons, so it comes down to the same when using Javelin. I've always kind of been okay with using Kyle, but he's definitely boring as fuck. And I think for him to double reliably, he even needs like a speed wing, and like, why would you give your speed wing to a boring unit? It makes him slightly less boring. Yeah. He probably still doesn't double with it because, I don't know, benchmarks reaching is hard when you're like mediocre all around. It's so hard to find anything fun to say about Kyle. He's just very generic and boring and stupid and boring. Feels bad, man.
Yeah, you should just give your speed wings to Marissa and play full-on sunk cost emblem.
Just dodge Lamau. You can't get hit if you don't get hit. Easy. I would have loved to do more to get into Tellius and the better feeling units than Kyle, which is basically everyone. But we're like an hour in, and we've done exactly the GBA units, so I think this is a great point to round it out. Next time we will do Titania, Marcia, Gatri, and then the FE10 squad as well. Maybe some DS emblem if we get to it. Depends on how long-winded we are. I feel like we had a lot to say about the GBA units, probably because they're just, I mean, not all of them are equally interesting, but at least they're all stand out in some way, even if they stand out in their boringness or lack of utility.
Yeah. I don't know. I think we'll have a lot, especially characters like Norn. You just endless potential there.
Oh,
but
we'll
see.
For sure, dude. I'm not even. She has so much potential. I'm not even sure this is FE12 or FE11 Norn. That's how interesting she is. Well, either way, we will see you next time. Thanks for joining me, Bopper.
It was fun. Thank you for having me.
Later. Bye.